Before you go on, I wanted to make a couple of comments regarding stage one, building your contact base that you just read about. While it's never too early to start building your network, whether that means staying in touch with college and law school classmates, or perhaps staying in touch with people you like that you've worked with at client organizations or in your firm who've moved on to other positions. I think there's a point in everybody's career where they've achieved a certain level of technical competence when it's time to get more serious about business development, to get more organized about business development. Because I think we all know that regardless of firm, it's almost universal today, that to move ahead in your firm, almost every firm requires that you have some competence and track record in business development. Now we're going to talk about a plan here and some options for it. Before I do, I wanted to make sure I cover the first point up here. It's not just enough to have a contact, you need to build a genuine relationship. And by genuine, I mean it's more than you're my client and I'm your attorney, or you're my client and I'm your accountant. I mean we need to get to know people a little bit deeper, more comprehensive way. For example, we need to find if we have any similar life experience. Do we have kids the same age? Or share some common interests, whether it's being a wine connoisseur or growing up in the same place. But in any case, we need to get that more deep, more genuine relationship. That's what I'm talking about, not just superficial relationships. Of course, you want to have some kind of a vision for where you're going to go with your practice. That will help dictate what you're involved in. But for right now, I want to hit a starting point, which is to identify your current contacts, to get an inventory, to get a list of some sort, whether it's on an Excel spreadsheet, a word process list, or your firm's CRM. I want to get an inventory of who I already know that might be relevant to long-term business development. Now, I think most professionals I've worked with find they know more people that might be relevant for that purpose than they think they do. But let's start with a list. Now, after that, I want to develop a plan to generate more contacts, more relationships that I can build over time. Now, I want to emphasize, before we get to some options for doing that, that one size does not fit all. Some of you will be at different points in your career. Early in your career, you're going to probably do more social or sporting activities. Later, it may be more trade or professional groups. It's also going to be dictated by the kind of practice you have and your own personal preferences. But let's look at some of the options open to you. The activities we're going to run through are all ways you can invest your time, whether a little or a lot, in business development. Of course, they're going to be determined by your personal preferences, your practice area, your seniority in the firm. No one can do it all, so you have to make choices and try things out. Networking is probably the most common area, and I mean by that developing deeper relationships with the people you already know. Two things that I'd say make networking effective. One, you got to have a list, and two, you got to build a routine. So you reach out on a regular basis, whether it's to set up lunches or breakfast or thought leadership pieces, but you got to have that routine going. Next area is prospecting, far less common, but useful in some cases, best done as part of a team. And I'm talking about identifying ideal prospects we'd like to work with where we don't have a relationship and trying to open the door, whether it's direct mail or phone calls or something of that nature. It does tend to work fairly well if you've got an industry you're going after that'll talk to people even before the point of sale and is very definable. A couple that come to mind are not-for-profits and governmental agencies. Internal marketing, a very, very important area, particularly if you're in a service area in the firm. Great for cybersecurity, for example, in an accounting firm, or for estate planning in a law firm. Friends and family, not a place where you have to spend more time, but you do want to let people know what you do and be excited about what you do and let them know you like where you work. I have seen a number of situations where even in the first year or two, someone can bring in a significant client because a friend or a family member happened to be in an influential position in their organization. Promotional activities are the broadest area and include everything from going to church to being on the board of a national trade association and everything in between: social activities, sporting activities, community activities, civic activities, being on the boards of not-for-profits, and even things like social media. Two things that really are important when it comes to promotional activities. One, whatever you're doing, you really need to believe in it regardless of its business development potential. It's got to be something you believe in. And second, you need to be a leader, be active. Don't just be on LinkedIn, but post. Don't just be in a trade association, but be on a committee of some sort. Present clients is really the greatest source of contacts as you move through your career. And it's certainly one of the reasons we really want to have enthusiastic clients. The best source of new business for most clients I work with are former client personnel. People you've worked with before, impressed by what you do, they go someplace else, and at some point, not right away usually, but bring you in. I've seen people bring in 3 or 4 clients from the same former client person. Direct referrals is one that's talked about a lot. I think it's important you let clients know you're interested in referrals. I find the best way to do this is to ask for advice rather than referrals, because you may get things even better than referrals, like going with them to a trade association meeting. Other service providers and suppliers are very important. Accountants should know lawyers, lawyers should know accountants, and they both should know the bankers that work with their present clients. You have a mutual area of interest, something meaningful to talk about, and you all know that business development is important. Customers and clients can be a fruitful area to invest time. Doing a seminar for a bank for their clients, or doing a program for a general contractor that he might offer for subcontractors, is a great way to leverage off a present client that's enthusiastic. And clients' network is important, whether it's a trade association or social activities. If you can go with a client to interface with their network, it's a great idea, because when people that know your client, who are usually also decision makers or influencers in their business, people know your client, see you with that client in that situation, that says a lot about why they trust you, and that maybe they ought to consider using you. Finally, outside board members, significant area, particularly in things like not-for-profits. But I think all board members are usually influential in other organizations, movers and shakers in their communities. So if you can build some one-on-one relationships with them, that's a great way to spend your time. One last point before we move on. Remember that stage 1 is all about building and developing relationships. It's not about selling. So don't sell in stage 1 activities. Notice no one is comfortable, not you, not your contacts, or vice versa, at a golf course or a social event, a civic event, or even a trade association, if the conversation gets too pushy, too salesy, too aggressive. So don't sell in stage 1 activities. Instead, use a stage 1 activity to set up a stage 2 meeting. For example, if you're at the 19th hole or mingling after a board meeting, it's fine to say something like, you know, it'd be great to get together and talk a little business. And maybe there's some ways we might be able to help one another if there's a good fit. That way you don't surprise them and nobody's turned off. And I've never seen anybody reject an invitation like that. So don't sell in stage 1 activities. Set up your stage 2 meeting. Speaking of stage 2, we're going to go there next in tutorial, and we'll talk about how that whole process in stage 2 works.